Hello. Oh, great. I love seeing all your faces. Hello. Welcome to 24 Pearl Street's Winter 2025 Student Open Mic Night, featuring all of you, as well as our MC, Joan Kwon Glass, who I will introduce in a moment. My name is Jennifer Jean, and I'm the Senior Program Manager of 24 Pearl Street at the Fine Arts Work Center. And I just have a few things to say before I turn things over to Joan. First, I just want to say I'm really excited about tonight. I love hearing students work. I communicate with all of you throughout the season, and I never get to hear or see or read your work or see your faces. But I get to now, and so this is an incredible delight for me. My role here tonight is to support all of you via tech. So if you have any questions, you can't hear somebody or something's going on, or maybe in the middle of things, you have a question about 24 Pearl Street or the Fine Arts Work Center, you can send a chat to me directly via the chat function. As well, if you get booted off and you need to let me know, and you're a reader and you think your time is coming soon to be reading, you can send me an email at jjean@fawc.org. I'll put that in the chat in a moment. There's also available a transcript for all of you. You just have to choose that function on the toolbar below. You just click more, and there's all these options that pop up in the menu. One of them is transcript. Also, closed caption is an option that you can choose. So that's up to each of you to choose yourself. We don't save those and hand them out. This special night featuring you is being recorded, and it will be posted on our YouTube channel for your viewing pleasure and for sharing later on. So now I'm going to introduce our MC, the lovely Joan Kwon Glass, who is a Korean diasporic poet, winner of the 2024 Perugia Press Poetry Prize for her book Daughter of Three Gone Kingdoms, as well as author of Night Swim, winner of the Diode Book Prize. Joan's poems have been featured or are forthcoming in Poetry Magazine, The Slowdown, Passages North, Poetry Daily, Terrain, Ninth Letter, Rattle, and AAWW, The Margins, as well as Poetry Northwest, Tahoma Literary Review, and Prairie Schooner and Salamander. She teaches and lives near New Haven, Connecticut, and teaches with us at 24 Pearl Street. Please join me in welcoming Joan Kwon Glass.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Jennifer, for that beautiful introduction. I'm really, really happy to be here. I've been sort of like obsessed with the Fine Arts Work Center for the better part of the last 30 years or so, because I've been going to Provincetown since I was 18. So it truly is an honor to work with the Fine Arts Work Center. Um, I've so enjoyed working with the students that I've had, some of whom are here tonight. And I just wanted to, before we get started, um, just talk for a minute about poetry, about writing um, during times in which there is a lot of turmoil and transition. Because, as some of you may know, Mercury retrograde ends tomorrow. And Venus has been in retrograde at the same time, and we've been in between solar eclipses. And it's just basically chaos out there, not to mention, politically what's going on and how that's affecting so many people in different ways. I participated last night in a transformative justice focus group or something. And it was just really interesting, like the things that came up in that group. So for example, looking at someone, you don't necessarily know what someone is experiencing, what they're bringing to the table, how they're showing up on any particular night. So I just wanted to acknowledge, and I try to do this, since the election. I just want to acknowledge the fact that everybody is probably struggling with something, and yet we're showing up. We're showing up for art, we're showing up in community, we're showing up for ourselves, and we're showing up for one another. So that is actually kind of a big deal, at least the way that I see it. I think it's an exercise in self-preservation, and it's also, making a commitment to art and making a commitment to the world, no matter what state it's in, and to life. So welcome. I'm really, really glad that all of you are here, and that you are able to show up in whatever capacity you are going to be showing up tonight, whether it's going to be to read, whether it will be to listen. And before we start, I just wanted to read something that I thought was really interesting. And Mary Ruefle I go through like Mary Ruefle phases where I'm reading a lot of her work. And there was one quote that um, I feel like there's a Mary Ruefle quote for like every occasion. And I found one because today I just had like an absolutely absurd day at work. Yesterday too, come to think of it. And I found this quote by her, and it's from one of her essays, I believe. And this is what it says. Although all poets aspire to be birds, no birds aspire to be a poet. I was like, that is just like hilarious and also kind of depressing, but a good reminder that one of the things that we do as writers is observe, that we're like taking in the world, we're making observations, and we're making connections. So although there may not be any birds that want to be us, we can certainly continue to connect in the world in sorrowful ways, um, in terms of what's making us angry, and in terms of just beauty, where you find beauty and even absurdity. So without further ado, let us see if I can remember how to take a screenshot on my computer. If everyone who is able to and able and willing to show your face on camera and doesn't mind being in the picture altogether, we're going to do that. If it is an issue, no worries. So I don't know, like strike some sort of pose, whatever strikes your fancy and how you're feeling. And I'll do like a 3, 2, 1. All right. 3, 2, 1. Okay. I got it. Awesome. Got it. All right. So we're going to start with, I have a list. We are going to start first with everyone reading one page of poetry or one page of prose. It's possible, or maybe even likely, that there will be a second opportunity to read. So if you brought, more than a page, that's great, because there will be another opportunity, most likely, and like a second round for you to read something else. So yeah, first we're going to open with Lisa Charnock. By the way, if I do not pronounce your name correctly, please correct me. So Lisa Charnock, if she is here, and who worked with Carl Phillips.
I am here, and thank you very much, Joan and Jennifer, for setting this up. It's a delightful opportunity. This poem was written in the Carl Phillips workshop, but not workshopped in the workshop, so it's pretty fresh and new. And it's using a word that is IRRUPTED, erupted, which is a little unusual. Title: Variations on a Rare Verb. Two broods of cicadas erupted east of the Mississippi last year. Finely striped pine siskins erupt periodically, assembling by vast numbers in the heart of the U.S., maybe driven by not enough. Seawater erupted Hilo, Hawaii 18 days each year in the last decade, never in the decade 50 years before. COVID was found to travel in air as death erupted 1.5 million souls, lest we forget. Elon Musk is a transitive verb. He demands an object on which to act. The intransitive requires no object. He destroys. And some verbs can be both. MAGA erupted the Capitol on January 6th. We were complacent and MAGA erupted. As they flood the zone, disbelief and dread erupt, the same murk and stench as any flood entails. The hungry, the tired, the huddled masses, and the newly unemployed are erupting like pine siskins and cicadas. Let the country's red blood boil. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I love that last line, really powerful. Thank you for reading. Our next reader will be Jamie Lee, who worked with Anne Hood.
Okay, thank you all. Just give me 1 second. I just had to relocate. Okay. So I worked with Anne Hood, and the workshop theme was about kickstarting your novel. And this piece I wrote in the workshop, and similar to Lisa, it wasn't really workshopped, so it still feels a little bit raw, but it's from a novel in progress, which is a campus novel that I'm writing. Kids like Maxine Chu aren't supposed to end up at schools like Ainsley College, and yet she got accepted. For starters, no one in her South Seattle neighborhood had even heard of Ainsley, let alone gets into a place like that. To the Chus, the Harvards, Princetons, and Ainsleys of the world only existed on television. Families like hers could go lifetimes without ever knowing about a school like that. And if they did, there'd be the tacit understanding that they were no place for a blue-collar family like hers. They were for the chosen ones, for whom stepping into the campus, their campus, was a birthright. Those places aren't real, her dad would say in Cantonese, scoffing at the TV every night at 6 p.m. Pacific. Maxine had learned to tune him out in favor of catching Rory Gilmore's latest exploits at Yale. They should make a show about all the shit I see driving the damn shuttle. Now that's real. Despite her dad's grumblings, the more she watched, the more plausible it became to envision herself there. Aside from Gilmore Girls, she fueled her collegiate fantasies by binging the secret history-inspired fan fiction in the computer room late into the night. Then she'd climb into her wobbling bunk bed, trying not to wake Tanya, and doze off to images of herself crossing verdant lawns, rushing off to classes in old Gothic buildings. This evening ritual repeated itself for nearly the entirety of her sophomore through senior years. So strong her mental projection became that she felt she had willed her acceptance letter into existence. She applied early decision to Ainsley, the smallest of the Ivies, making a commitment to attend if they accepted her. The acceptance rate was higher among early decision applicants. At least, that's what she had learned from Trixie, the admissions consultant that took her on pro bono. In truth, the East Coast liberal arts schools Trixie steered her toward all seemed to blur together. The biggest differences between them seemed to be how large their student populations were, or whether they were in an urban, suburban, or rural setting. Maxine could picture herself at all of them. As long as she made it into one, it'd not only mean being the first in her family to go to college, but she'd finally escape her surroundings and make something of herself. In the end, it was the generosity of Ainsley's financial aid package that tipped the scales. If admitted, all she'd need to come up with was money for food and books each semester. She'd been scrounging for these things her whole life, so how would doing so in college be any different? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for reading. Okay, next reader is Holly Woodward, who was one of my students in class this season.
What a pleasure that was. Thank you so much. I thought I'd read something a bit fun. Truth be told, this is about my brother, who's not really my friend, but in this version, I put him as friend. Dodged another bullet. It seems I'm doomed to live, my friend said. I laughed and scrolled through his hospital TV, stopped dead on a dodgeball tournament. Why would one do this, not under duress by Coach Bluebells in a high school gym? He showed me the scars front and back, 7-hour surgery, kidney in the trash. You still have balls, I said. He gripped the rail and shimmied the length of his bed, then back. He shook his head. How did I dodge that bullet? Death hates us, I suspect. Satan says, not you two again. How many times has death brushed us aside? The BB ball in the back of his head I used to play with under his scalp as a kid. The 600 sharks I swam with. The gym windows drip sweat 20 years back. Miss Bluebells blasts the whistle and screams. I am last on the space between our rival team. My whole squad yells, catch and send it back, free us. They wave damp hands. Balls bounce back at me, front and back, pincered between. I catch one attack, bend to let the other whiz by my head. I know exactly who to free. Life is like that, wedged between birth and death. One eye ahead, one behind. Well, 1 out of 2 ain't bad.
Thank you, Holly. Okay, next up we have Layla Farjami, and Layla was also one of my students.
Hello. I'm so happy to be one of your students, Joan. So the class was based on estrangement and this kind of a estrangement poem. It's called Daughter of Salt, C. I was weary of saving men, throwing in the frayed rope, rescuing rocks and scraps of shipwreck. I could not stare into the corneas of injured animals on the roadside either. I would let them keep moaning, gasping for a last breath. I did not become a mother for this reason. Never held a child longer than honey in my throat. Never had much to offer but metaphors like strings of light dimming on bows. My personal Eden, a utopia for one. Once my father reached his hand out to me in a dream. I cringed as he pleaded Babajun, reminding me of how I was raised on his earned bread, paid for air. His fingertips dipped in suffering like tar. Brushing him off, it was hard to tell whether he was colder than death. He twisted my wrist, begging me as a form of cruelty. Drunkenness without the booze. A voice I'd heard before. A little boy's crying from another house. A screeching ghost. The sound of never drowning, yet never arriving on land. A daughter made of salt. A dead sea to keep bodies afloat.
Thank you so much, Layla. Okay, next we have Norman Tran, who was also in my class. Hey, Norman.
this was a fun poem from your class, which was about in the gay world we have tops and bottoms as positions, and this is an ode to bottoms. So this is called Blessing for the Boys Who Bottom. Because I know what it's like to starve for 5 to 10 minutes of bliss, give or take. To kneel under shower steam with man-made tools to force your God-made body to expel its earth-made gifts. Bless the boys who shepherd evenings around the movement of bowels. Bless the boys who pause before eating to make sure that their gambler's choice is not spicy, is dairy-free, is not a starchy vegetable, is unfried, is anything but red meat. Bless the boys who know the sacred geometry of radii. Bless the boys who, having topped, are doubly gentle to themselves. Bless the boys whose bathroom is half temple, half pit stop. Bless the boys who swear by fiber pills and prebiotics. Bless the ones who do not yet know the small violences of plumage and plumbing. Bless the boys who hollow themselves for the holy ghosting of devotion. Bless the boy writing it. Bless the tops who crave our stolen fire, who know to kneel before us, God-defying miracles.
Thank you so much, Norman, for sharing that. Okay, next up we have Hannah Lee, who was with Dorian Law.
Thanks. This is a poem that's kind of based on a poem that she talked about in class from this book. It's called Finger Exercises. It's a poem. We're talking about Lee Young Lee and like his use of syllables. So this is my attempt at trying to go with some of the ideas that you were working with. Belt. In translation. All these years, my father's belt lies hidden. He left it to no one to own, damaged and worn, his hands cupping coins, cash, working at the till. Cold pennies, he said, dirty from all that want. Girding his waist, coiled like a snake, in tissue, his toil preserved in my bones. This record of love, inheritance of mine. These hands, poems live. What singing?
Thank you so much, Hannah. Okay, next we have Sandra Larkin, who also worked with Dorian. Oh, you have to unmute.
Decline and autumn. Leaves descend, litter the landscape. Goats mill and mutter, tend, murmuring, maybe we'll only be shorn, our coats torn away and sent home. Buffalo ghosts and soldiers passing, bearing threadbare knapsacks, drip derision into beaten earth. Shovels braced to exhume facts from thick mud. Residue of rain spun up in far-off seas. We saw wife and mother waving from her safe house sweeping downstream, viewed through the net we've tangled ourselves in. Evanescent scroll through groves of graven images, naked emperors gyrating under a ticking clock at midnight. Orating heads float above words shorn of meaning, wearing synthetic fibers, goat's hair, sheep's wool, fast fashion, assembled in distant grinding mills to fabricate the latest styles dictated for the fall.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Okay, next we have Elena Papayanis. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly.
Elena, you were very
Elena, okay. Good.
So I mainly write personal essays, but I've just started writing poetry. So I've picked one excerpt from an essay. It's the opening paragraph, basically, and then I have a poem for later. So here's the essay. It's called The Card Aisle. I was starting to feel self-conscious about how long I'd been standing there in the card aisle, leafing through the selection, looking uncertain. I imagined the footage if I was being caught on a time-lapse camera, me standing there while the world goes by. Day turns to night, the seasons pass. Mother's Day was approaching, and I was feeling pressure to pick a card that summarized all my complicated feelings about her, about our dynamic, about our history. Although I have a bit of a reputation of being indecisive, okay, it's a pretty big reputation. This time it felt justified. Picking a card is not an easy task, and I don't particularly enjoy the experience. It's not the aisle itself or the cost. Okay, maybe I resent the $8 price tag a little, but it's having to choose one. I was relieved to be in the aisle alone, with nobody there to witness my cringes or guffaws or how quickly I reject a card, often by reading just the first few words. Dearest Mom. Nope. Mom, you are my best friend. Nope again. It can take quite a few attempts to even find an opening line that doesn't turn me off entirely. There have been other times when there's another person in the aisle with me, and we do a little dance of avoidance around each other, uncomfortable about what our card selection or difficulty in picking one says about us. A Shoppers Drug Mart is my closest option, with its sharp fluorescent lighting, like they've installed too many lights on the ceiling, making it feel more like an examination room in a doctor's office. And in many ways it is, with each card presenting me with probing questions that intrude into my private life and visits that are sometimes welcome but are mostly not. There are few happy occasions to visit a doctor. Although I visit the card aisle a few times a year, mostly for happy occasions, the experience doesn't feel positive. It's a forced decision point, a reality check, an exercise in defining relationships. It's a place where I'm not only faced with many examples of positive relationship dynamics that don't reflect my own, but I'm forced to articulate what significant and complicated relationships mean to me. As I pluck each card out of its slot, I pull out feelings too. Thanks.
Thank you so much for reading that. I actually have a poem about that exact experience. So very cool to hear another one. Thank you for reading. Okay, so we're going to hear next from Kim Costigan, who was with Melissa Fibos.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is prose. Again, I also write mostly personal essay, and her generative class was the art of navel gazing. So this was an exercise about writing to our negative voices in our head that might stop us from writing. So I'm calling this an epistolary to the troll who lives inside me. Dear troll, just about every day I have a conversation with you, dear troll, about my inability to write. You ask me if I really want to write. You tell me that it's okay just to be ordinary, to be satisfied with good enough. You remind me that I'm getting by after all, and that I have lots of other distractions and desires that can replace writing. I try to negotiate with you, troll, even when you tell me I'm no good at writing, or that no one wants to read what I write, or that my story has been told 1,000 times. I try to convince you, troll, that you are not needed right now and to stay quiet. I thank you for trying to protect me, but I don't need your help at this moment. Troll, you are what stops me from writing. I wonder why you've been so loud and chatty lately. What aroused you this time? Was it the change of seasons, lack of sunlight, or worry about my kids or my nephew or money problems or the stress and busyness of daily obligations? Is it all of the above? You encourage me to scroll endlessly on Facebook and make me believe that your ranting negative messages are probably right. But troll, I'll tell you something I believe to be true. There are never enough stories about child abuse. Someone out there needs to read it and might finally feel seen when they read my story. Other writers have done that for me. I can tell my story in a touching, beautiful way that doesn't make the reader cringe. I am the only one who has walked through my singularly unique shoes, experienced and seen what I've seen and what I've survived, and it's worth writing about. I need to write this to honor all the grandmothers in my lineage who lived through hard times, yet had the strength to keep going. They survived abuse, forced hospitalization, untreated illnesses, sacrifice, hardship, and I am the result of all those generations of pain and hurt. I hold all their collective memories in my DNA, and it's what makes me both strong and vulnerable. Other women, other people who also come from generations of survivors will relate and connect with my story. Troll, you are afraid to let me write because you exist and thrive from the pain and fear of telling the truth. You need to stay quiet for a while now so I can do the work I need to do. Troll, I love you, even though you can be ugly and mean, but it's time for you to rest and let me loose.
Thank you so much, Kim, for reading. Okay, we're going to hear next from Andrea Rodriguez, who also worked with Melissa.
It is Andrea. Thank you. Just a quick thank you to the Fine Arts Work Center and to Joanne for hosting us. Appreciate you guys for allowing us to create this community tonight. I was also a part of Melissa Phoebos's workshop, and one of the things that she mentioned during the workshop was being able to see Lorraine Hansberry's journals, in which she wrote about what she was enjoying, what she was tired of. And I feel there's an Afro poem that I'm going to read today called My Spanish. It addresses that about my qualms with people correcting my Spanish or telling me that my Spanish is not good enough. So this is my Spanish. My Spanish is forgiving. She lets me lay claim to her like we didn't break up for a while, like I ain't never leave her for my white friends. My Spanish is memory. Maroon lipstick on Taino lips, Chanel No. 5, pendulum hips, black veil split to expose her wisdom. My Spanish is butchered. Tenses all messed up like, what's my past? What's my present? Permiso, can you tell me where I need to go from here? My Spanish is jealous. This union I have with English is not one she is fond of. Cabrona, she hisses. I was here first. My Spanish is vindictive. Below my window, she hangs off the lips of brown men yelling, Dime negra, can your English kiss you like this? My Spanish is alluring. Perfumed with communion, we congregate at her table, the apostles of her exclusion. My Spanish is mine. The RNA of my life. We are forever entwined. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Okay, and next we have Elle Lash, who also worked with Melissa.
Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer, for organizing this. Thank you, Joan, for hosting and keeping us all going. In Melissa's workshop, she read us a Rilke quote that says, "The work of the eyes is done. Go now and do the heart work on the images imprisoned within you." And then she said, "There's no writer's block. There's fear and perfectionism. You can be afraid and still write." And I love that. And so I write mainly memoir and essay. And so this was generated from the workshop, and I'm calling it Bruised Apple. When I was a stripper, just yesterday, I think, I was a silhouette on a mud flap. I was the flashing go-go girl on the neon sign. I was the shape of female. Also, I was me. Didn't know I could be an archetype and still myself. The Bible says Eve was made from Adam's rib, the curved, slender bone that protects the heart. Not that I've read the Bible, heathen queen of the night that I am, but I've heard it tells our woman story, how he talked with a snake and then ate an apple. When I was a stripper, I talked to snakes. I listened to them too. Those conversations had nothing to do with fruit. Every evening, there's a crackling excitement in the smoke-thick, pulsing air of the club. It's dark inside and it's dark outside, both at the same time. This is permission for the desire, whereas in the morning at the strip club, it feels transgressive. Daytime, snakes ought to be sunning themselves on rocks. Today, they chose to be here, in the dark. Inside the club, we're all in the same small, dark hole. Before going on stage, I remember to clean the small, dark holes of my body gently and firmly with a scented, moist wipe made for babies. I remember to check my teeth for apple flesh, to cover my bruises with skin-colored cream. I remember to spray myself with perfume that smells of peaches and pears. I remember to curl my eyelashes and apply glitter to my shoulders. I step into my tall shoes. I smile and pull my stomach tight. I remember to look at myself and see myself as the audience will see me, the snakes and the rakes and the jakes. I still do this now. I do this still, although I've picked and cut and bitten the apple, avoiding the flesh that is bruised, my woman story. I remember to look at myself and see myself as the audience will see me, just like yesterday, I think, when I was a stripper. Thank you.
Thank you, Elle. Okay, it looks like we have gone through everyone who wanted to read once. So I think what I'm going to do is come back around to the beginning. If you do not have something else that you'd like to read when I call your name, feel free to just let me know that. But I'm hoping that everybody does. So we're going to come back to Lisa, who worked with Carl.
Well, thank you. This is wonderful. And the work is so strong. This is fabulous. This is a poem again written in Carl's workshop, and the title is MCI number 12. It's part of a series that I've been writing. MCI is the abbreviation for mild cognitive impairment. And the poem goes like this. They call it desertification, how the Sahel is becoming more Sahara, like parts of my husband's brain. And lately, I'm noticing that island, the anterior insular cortex, a tropical paradise for the axons of emotional affect and of empathy, is drying up, disappearing. He cannot say those things he's incapable of feeling. Once, with some other man, I hiked 50 miles through Rocky Mountain meadows. Stars careened overhead each night as we tussled between sleeping bags. Every muscle ached with the beauty of it all. And as I slept, oxygen filled my blood with strength for tomorrow. It's that wilderness I need again inside, that blood.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, we're going to come back around to Jamie, who worked with Anne Hood.
Okay, thank you for creating the space. So I'm going to read a poem that I wrote just for fun. I don't really identify as a poet, so it was really fun to write this and also now be able to share this. It's called Learning to Swim. I fear the water, but not with you. There, you are home, like a fish returned to sea. You splash, dive, kick. Come in, you call, but my heels dig into the earth. I stay on shore, safe, near its calm, shiny surface. What if it turns turbulent, foaming like the mouth of an angry dog? I crave solid ground, stoic as stone. No one ever taught me, I yell. I watch as you ride its waves, one with its moody blues, your highs and lows unbashful, just like the tide itself. No one ever taught me either, you reply. Now I see. To know its vastness is to know yours. Our hands clasped, I let it pull me in. We descend to discover an Atlantis of our own, how your layers unfold at each new depth. A treasure so luminescent and singular, how it gleams the farther we go. Finding ourselves here, I ask myself, why can't I make this my home too? And suddenly we are not sinking, but soaring. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay, next up, we're going to come back around to Holly, who was one of my students. And oh, there you are.
Yeah, sorry, I had to open my Kindle again.
Oh, that's okay.
This one, I don't know. I don't know if anyone else feels this kind of disease in this current climate. Split decision. This is a dream I had recently. Split decision. The doctors decided to cut off my head. I nodded, all right, if you think it best. But as I lay on the hospital bed waiting for OR, I could not rest. I saw their point. My mind's a wild boar, tyrannical, erratic, solipsist. My body is slave, abused, ignored. But didn't each need the other to exist? I ran through the labyrinthine halls of cutting-edge clinic. Could we call it off? No, it's too late for second thoughts. I stumbled, frightened at the cost, then knelt on the cold hospital floor. What will become of me cut in two? What will my body live for? What will my lonely mind do? Or will my heart say without my head, I'm happy now that it's finally dead?
Thank you, Holly. Okay, we're going to come back to Layla, who was also my student.
Okay, this is another estrangement poem. It's another Daughter of Salt. Daughter of Salt, the scape. My body, a river bend, graveled, a moon mark gleaming. When night clawed me, I ran to the sea. The sea had no use for a daughter turned salt. Mother said God was blinded by storms. Forgive him. Sisters said Satan confessed at the gallows. Forgive him. Father, you said your father was hunger, an empty plate. You learned to plead when there was nothing to spare. For your mercy, I never begged, held my breaths, each a wail, dense as stone. I fled the lair for dust, for stars, for air on skin. The dawn too thick. You never woke.
Thank you so much, Layla. Okay, next up, we're back to Norman.
This one is inspired by the prompt in the class, which was like writing to a unexpected deity and making that an ode. So this is called Dear Universe, I need to talk to your manager. Look, we need to discuss your recent handling of my X-Files. I appreciated your earlier work, subtle stuff like the Uber driver with the same cologne, books with protagonists named Michael, the string of Asian tops with tattoos exactly on their right arm. You really got my type nailed down. I'll give you that. But there's been two incidents. Incident one, red light at my home intersection, a gray Tesla because, of course, their face because, obviously, the same license plate I've been not looking for. You went for the sharp stab of calculated statistics. Really? Incident 2. Then another X texts to report. TSA line, his own X. Tell your intern that proving yourself is so overrated. Same day split screens, a choreographed double feature nobody asked for. Stories were exchanged, but that's what they are now. That's what we are now. The three of us. So yeah, universe, I know the economy is rough. You're probably understaffed. Your coincidence department working overtime, and you've seen enough. I get it. But maybe, just maybe, next time you could skip the part where we're awake for the operation. I'm just learning how to stitch back together that thing called dreaming, that thing called tomorrow without anesthesia.
Thank you, Norman. Okay, next we're going to come back to Hannah, who worked with Dorian.
Hi, this is a poem that I did in a workshop with Richie Hoffman based on a George Herbert poem. A list poem was the exercise. My list poem is called Anti-Woke List. First, the forms of human difference, myths and origin stories. Once upon a time, we could understand each other. Uniformity made it easier to be united, if that is what you want to call it. In the great past, no outliers spread out from the hypothetical average, the needs of the user and the design of the world perfectly aligned. Ergo, the absence of inequality, no need for a ramp or extra time or a support person. All lives mattered. No necessity for the courts and the cases. Discrete and insular minorities, the coinage of words, of phrases. We all spoke one language, and I could have known my father then. There would be no nation, no other, no doctrine of discovery, O Canada. Not the nouns displacement, disruption, diaspora. Not the verb decolonize. Punished for wanting to build a name and scattered across the ends of the earth, humans became diverse. It has been a bad word ever since, a curse. Babel, the unfinished tower, means confusion in Hebrew.
Thank you, Hannah. Okay, we're going to come back now to Sandra, who was Dorian's student.
Okay, this is a poem that came out of an exercise we did in Dorian's class. It's called Path. It began at the tumbled gap in the stone wall, marking my parents' property line, a border the woods ignored. Leaf litter, oaks and maples, the same on both sides. It pulled me around granite knees, breaching their blanket of muted shrubs, rerouting each time a tree abandoned vertical life to nourish crawlers and mushrooms and mold. I'd follow it to its end in a furtive graveyard. 3 battered cars from the 50s, caged by saplings, bumpers dangling, mottled and colorless, rusted springs sprouting from seat covers, steering wheels inert. Car corpses, a grown-up mystery I loved. As still as if they had never bumped over railroad tracks or done 60 on the parkway, windows rolled down, Elvis on the AM, a couple thigh to thigh on the bench seat, smoking cigarettes, laughing. I had not yet known someone who died.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Sorry, my page is frozen here. Okay, next we're gonna come back to Elena.
Okay, so I started writing poetry after I read Maggie Milner's couplets. I don't know if many of you know that. So I'm very much in the rhyming couplet zone in my poetry at the moment. So this poem is called Hung Up, and it is a series of rhyming couplets. Okay. She left me hanging and I let her hang me. I dangled there and pretended that each second didn't feel like an eternity. The time between texts stretched out as she pleased, and I imagined her finger hovering over send as she teased me. Not till I came, no, this part isn't sexual. That's just how she communicates, sparse and ineffectual. Although the sex was when she was alive and connected, the rest of the time her emotions seemed unaffected. But I pretended I was okay without any certainty, and as though the precariousness didn't scare the shit out of me. Never officially being together only made it worse, because like a trapeze artist who's afraid of heights, every swing of the rope made me curse. Even though I felt sick from the thrill, I tried with every ounce of my being to appear super chill. I was hanging by my heart with veins bulging and taut, and she was the indifferent puppeteer, barely giving me a thought. On a first date with someone new, she is still the backdrop. I look past them and see her, always better, smarter, funnier, a real mic drop. These new dates are in an unfair predicament, and I would hate to be them. They are innocent and unaware that I'm dangling up here while she's grounded down below. The imbalance is tragic and comical, but not funny in a ha-ha kind of way. It's more of an awe-inducing, head-tilting sway. Like my cat just died, or you have some other reason to feel sympathy, and you can plainly see how much this connection has taken out of me. Do I want to be her or be with her is the question every lesbian must ask. Can I tell the difference? Do I dare to ask myself to choose one over the other when deep down some part of me knows I only want to be tied to her in one way because I can't have the other, and that's just how it goes. I'm hung up on someone who's hung up on someone else, and the cycle continues all the way down and across. Like a tangled set of wires, love, lust, and wounds intermingle, moving against each other to create a sad-sounding jingle. How do I unhang myself and get cut down from this rope? Some part of me must enjoy the dizzying heights, the precariousness, the hope. I could let go at any moment and the landing would be painful, but the fact that I've been holding on so tightly is possibly more shameful. If no one else had hung here before, it might be too hard to admit that I'm still dangling here, not yet over it.
Thank you so much. Okay, next we're going to come back to Kim, who worked with Melissa.
Yep. This is memoir, personal essay. This is called The Pit. The pit was a big, wide open field between two elementary schools in Winthrop Center. Playground equipment was positioned along the far end of the long chain link fence that surrounded the perimeter of the expansive dusty field. Occasional patches of grass could be found here and there, but mostly a dry orange dirt covered the field that kids from both elementary schools were released onto at the ringing of the recess bell. Recess was a welcome break from the monotony of my 5th grade classroom. This year was particularly difficult for me. My teacher did not like me much, and she, like my previous teachers, told my parents on parent-teacher night that I was smart, but I was a daydreamer and often didn't complete my work. In the mid-70s, the term attention deficit disorder was still years away from our lexicon. But 5th grade was harder for me for other reasons. My family life was unlike most of my friends at school. We were told to keep our life hidden and secretive, and my emotions by the time I was in 5th grade felt like a bubbling cauldron full of sadness, shame, love, hate, and confusion. But the flame that heated the cauldron was anger. My father had transferred so much of his anger to the 3 of us. With every blow to my mother's face, with every grope to my small body, with every spanking on my little sister's rear end, was some of his anger. And each of us absorbed it and stuffed it down in order to get through each day. But anger was a fuel, too. It fueled so much of my behavior, and by the time I was 10, it felt like it was an accelerant spraying all over everything, and that a conflagration could happen at any moment. I was anger's puppet and could do nothing to stop it. Anger took over my sensibilities and pushed me to fight with one of my good friends. Maria and I had been friends. It felt like we had something in common. I couldn't name it, but it felt like there was something dark and unspoken happening in her home, the way it was in mine. That's why I couldn't understand why anger was telling me to fight her. But the heat from its unwieldy flame filled me, and it demanded to escape the containment of my body. Anger wanted to be seen and felt in a physical way. Anger wanted attention to be paid to it, and the way it wanted to manifest was through my fist against Maria's face. It felt so familiar. I knew how to fight, and anger told me to do it. "Meet me on the playground at recess," I wrote in a note that was passed up the road to Maria. Anger took over when we stood in the center of the pit, surrounded by our classmates, as I got Maria in a headlock. She was bent at the waist, and as I pulled her head down and punched her in the face. But there was another part of me, a higher part maybe, that said, "Not too hard." Her long brown wavy hair hid the fact that my fist barely made contact with her face. I was play acting in order to satisfy anger's need to be out of my body and be on display for an audience. I felt like I was in control for once, and I was in command at center stage. The other kids stood around shouting, "Fight, fight," chanting like a chorus. feeling both ashamed and thrilled simultaneously. Ashamed that I was hitting someone I liked, a friend, but anger was thrilled to be at the center of attention. Finally, it would get the respect it was due. It would be in charge, and everyone would respect it. That's it.
Thank you, Kim, for sharing that. Okay, next we're going to come back around to Andrea.
Hello again. So the second poem that I have is called Turista, and that translates to tourist, and is actually named after a Bad Bunny song, in which he is on his new album, DMTF, in which he talks about a lover who only got to see the good in him. This is Turista 1. It's 3:33 p.m. and I place you in that work truck. Day splitting through the cab, rays severed by shades perched on the slope of almost. And the memories set to rest by time, I dig for flicks of your autumn records. The ones that kissed the skin nature cut, the ones that guided the suture thread dampened on her tongue. What if we had entered the forest birthing this fall? Us, the cold, shielded and shedding, bare soles testing the wooden planks of that footbridge. 2. After dusk broke, I left you a voicemail. The fuck you punctuating the end of that call, propelling my soiled tongue into voiceless hours. When the blunt could no longer contain croons of past, my body shifted in the jump of dreamscape. Throat gurgling truth under the moon, calling for the soft laws of breath once broken on my forehead. It was possibility who woke me from the laboring, slowing the rattle in my rib cage, the echo of my fevered dream. 3. Within the fog of you unblocking me, I rose to bury the proof of your existence, and then dropped the shovel to text you good morning. Your pride arrived to the forest first, footfalls belled by dead foliage, the strike of your new lover, copper on my taste buds. This is how you tie the knot, said the rattle. This is how you set the wood. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Okay, we're going to come back around to Elle.
Thank you. I'm just so enjoying hearing everyone's work. Thank you. So this is from an essay called Which City? I'm just going to take an excerpt from the middle part. So just to explain it, I and another mom decided to take a bunch of 13-year-old girls to the town of Salem at Halloween. We have time before our witch tour begins, so we pay $15 a ticket and let the girls go into a haunted house. They enter in a single file line as instructed. They all want to be in the middle. Not first, not first, they say. We hear them screaming over and over again from deep inside the house. Soon they run through the exit, breathless, laughing, scoffing. It wasn't scary. They tremble in their flimsy jackets, cold, but definitely not scared. We hustle them down the street to where the tour guide is beckoning in front of a shop that sells crystals. The teens slump under the store's awning. They would rather eat fried things and take pictures of themselves with pouty lips next to people dressed as demons. But I have already paid for this tour, and I insist we get in line. The tour guide wears a black slicker and thick black eyeliner. She has a fast walk, a master's degree in history, and a bouncing blonde ponytail. She speaks in a dramatic stage whisper as she leads us down the misty cobbled streets. She asks what we know about the Salem witch trials and how we know it, and most of us say we've read The Crucible in high school. At the old Salem jail, we stand against a wall seeking refuge from the wind. The girls huddle at the back of the crowd, palming their phones in their pockets. The accusers overlapped with the accused: Mary Warren, Rebecca Nurse, Bridget Bishop. The guide recites names as if summoning their ghosts. My daughter whispers, "When is lunch?" The guide turns to look at our small, shivering coven. "How old are you?" They mumble their ages, 13, 14, and I say mine too, 50, although I don't think she was asking me. "You are the same age as the girls who started it all," she says. But what I don't say is that I'm the same age as the woman accused of witchcraft. The girls in their tiny jackets quiver, their teeth percussive. She asks them, "Why do you think it happened?" A bearded, bespectacled man at the front of the group begins to posit a theory about mold on grain causing hallucination. The tour guide squints at him. That has been debunked. "Maybe they were bored," says the tallest of our girls under her breath. But the guide has heard. She laughs and moves closer. The girls look horrified. "Just like you, they were bored, hungry, cold, and miserable," she says. The girls are listening. She is speaking to something they understand. Those girls in Salem were powerless until they cried witch. We visit the cemetery next. It's surrounded by slender black locusts, the type of trees on which those women found guilty were hanged. Church bells reverberate in the sodden air. Inscribed on the large granite threshold at the entry to the graveyard are the accused's final words: "On my dying day, I am no witch. God knows I am innocent." They hung those women from the black locust trees, and I find myself imagining a Halloween piñata shaped like a witch, filled with knowledge, stories, and memories rather than candy. We end the tour. I am surprised to feel grief. There were no witches in Salem. I say it softly to myself. There never were. There were just women. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elle, for that. So we have come to the end of the second round of reading, and I'm just wondering if there are any other students who are here who might be interested in reading, even though you did not sign up. If so, feel free to unmute yourself or show your face. I'll give it a minute like a good middle school teacher.
I'm in Joan's other class. I don't know if I can read.
Please.
Okay. Joan's other wonderful, wonderful class. And this was from a prompt. This is written after a poem called "This Poem is Not About a Bullet" by Luna Ray Hall. And it's also a shape poem, which no, can't be seen. But anyway, it flows in a shape. This poem is not about the old country / the Holocaust / the DP camps. It's about my brother and me at home in our Brownsville apartment the morning our mother went out for groceries, and my brother stuffed me into my red snowsuit and pulled and snapped and tied and zipped until I was plump and stiff as a balloon animal. We climbed onto the table's oilcloth, a cheery plaid with pairs of dark cherries, then bent our shoulders sideways and through our third-floor kitchen window and stepped into the snowdrift, embracing the entire flat roof of the two-story building next door. The white shimmered hush had rolled every sharp edge, smooth and curved. It covered the gritty tar paper flashing, cloaked the low concrete parapet at the rooftop's edge that came only to his knee, concealed every danger, present and past, a square of joy, ours alone, fresh and never broken. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margaret. Glad that you're here. Thanks for coming. So I think with that, I'm going to pass it back to Jennifer.
Thank you all so much. There was one person that said that the work that was being shared is such high quality. I totally agree. This was amazing. All your work is really kind of shocking what comes out of the learning process. And yeah, thank you so much for making yourselves vulnerable and for sharing with all of us. As I said, this is being recorded and will be shared on YouTube. Feel free to share via social media and say, I'm on minute, 902 or wherever you are in the recording. And I hope you all come back, especially those of you who didn't read, who are maybe a little shy. We're going to always have these student open mic nights every season. And we're sort of switching things up at 24 Pearl Street. You'll see just a little bit of a sneak preview. Well, it's like a tiny little bit of a sneak preview. We're going to have different kinds of offerings coming up, writing accountability groups, co-plays, poetry dates, sprints with your familiar favorites like Carl Phillips and Melissa Phoebos, who was mentioned here, and others, as well as new folks coming up with different configurations of different kinds of classes. So keep an eye on those newsletters, all right? And feel free to send me any suggestions for people. We have a lot of people from Joan's class, so I can tell she's very popular. And you all probably want her back too. We do too. So yeah, send me your notes, your feedback, suggestions. I'm always here to receive them. So with that, we're going to end things, and I want to wish everyone a beautiful Thursday night and happy writing. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.